Kufar, Akbar, everybody working to another edition of the Crescent discussion group. We are here every Sunday afternoon at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. That would be 5 p.m. Central Standard Time for all you folks out there on the East Coast. And I don't even know what time it is out in California. I'd say probably 2 o'clock, something like that. We are going to go about an hour and a half today. I got to leave just a little bit early because we have a kind of a back to school thing at the church tonight. So me being the Sunday school director, I have to be there for that. So I got to be, if you're in charge, you got to be there earlier and before everybody else. Before we get going, if you are here for the first time or you have not subscribed to the Crescent discussion group, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We would really appreciate it. We're pushing almost 700 subscribers for us. I mean, we're getting more and more every single week. So I appreciate people subscribing. I'll make sure you hit the like button, hit the share button, and comment on the videos so we can drive the arithmetic, what do we call that? The algorithm. You drive the algorithm or whatever that thing is called, that drives up people's views or gets a show out there for people. But anyway, start clicking around and sniffing around and go to the video section on the YouTube channel, or the live section. I think it's the live section that has all, and look at how many videos there. We have over, I think 200, 300 videos. We have quite a few videos, and we have all kinds of different topics that we've talked about over the years. So you can find a lot of information on there. And if you disagree with some of it, send me an email. Tell me why you disagree with it. And then we can address that here live on the show, or even bring you onto the show if you want to tell us why we're wrong. I don't mind being wrong. I've been wrong many times before, and we'll be wrong many times. 148. Thank you, Chloe. Chloe went in. We have 148 videos. And you know what we did? After everything went sideways last fall, I went in there and we didn't delete the video. We just made it non-public, or didn't make it public, because what was happening, these trolls were taking the videos, clipping stuff from them that make it, it makes you looking like the worst way, and then sending it to people on the school board and sending it to people at the school and putting it on the Facebook page. I'm just going to take it down, and then I'll go back and I'll put them back up when I want to and at my leisure. And some of the titles of those shows were pretty provocative. So the most provocative ones I kept down, but I put most of them back up. I think we had, well, I ain't gonna get into it, but anyway, if you go there and take a look at all the videos that we do have quite a few. Okay, so today, following the theme that we've been pretty much pursuing the last couple weeks is providing evidence for Islam. This is what we've been when we looked at Mecca, and we tried to examine the evidence for its existence in the 7th century. And when you do that, you come to the conclusion, the logical conclusion is that it did not exist. And the reason why it is a logical conclusion is because A, there is no archaeological evidence supporting a 7th century Mecca. When people want to demonstrate the historicity of a location, the history of this location, what they do is they dig. And when you dig up artifacts, depending on the layer in which they were found, that indicates the age of that location. Well, they don't have that in Mecca. And this is even after they've dug, dozens of meters into the ground to build those new skyscrapers. They didn't find anything, because if they did, they would have brought it up. Second thing is you don't have it Mecca located on any maps until I think it's 900 AD. 900 AD, Mecca finally shows up on a map. No maps before that. Mecca is the region that it's in is described as being barren, uninhabitable by all of the people who had explored that region prior to the 7th century. Uninhabitable. If they comment on that region and talk about its ability to support life, they all say, it's uninhabitable. Why? Because it doesn't have any water. You don't have anybody mention it by name until 741 is the first mention of Mecca in any literature outside of Islamic literature. And we all know the Islamic literature doesn't show up until the 9th century. So the bottom line is that we've taken this idea of a historical Mecca and turned it on its head. Last week, hold on, let me see here. Last week, what did we talk about last week? You guys remember what we talked about last week? We were talking about, oh my goodness, you're going to make me look, aren't you? I'm going to look. That's okay. I can't, this is the problem. When you talk about a new topic every week, you can't remember.
Well, I don't know, because I crashed my motorcycle.
I thought was that last week that you crashed?
Yeah. So I forgot what it was.
Yeah. So if you guys want to do anything and find anything of any type of value in last week's episode, we got Rad crashing and burning on his motor. It's not funny.
It was pretty funny. I laughed because this Muslima woman pulled out of her driveway and totally cut me off. And they set down the bike, and then they got out with AK-47s, and I had to fight them off. So the jihad was averted. No, but no, seriously, a woman did cut me off, and I had to drop the bike. Yeah, but I picked it up, 785 pounds.
What is that? What do you know what minute mark that was?
Oh, it's like right away. It's like 20 minutes in.
Okay.
I even sent you the clip. You should post the clip.
I did see the clip. Well, maybe I'll show it here in a little bit.
All right. Well, yes. That was cool.
It was how Islam is just trying to destroy history, how it's trying to supplant history by destroying the historicity of Mecca itself. That's what we talked about last week. I went in there. Okay, so this week we're going to, since we're done with Mecca, this week we're going to go after the Quran. We can, I sit here and I go to Clubhouse and I listen to a lot of these discussions in Clubhouse. I'll go to Facebook and I'll see a lot of the interaction on Facebook. And what a lot of people do is they want to argue theological issues between the difference between the Bible and Islam. And there is a value to that. There is, there is, I guess it does have its own place. And a lot of people, that's what they want to do. That's especially what Muslims want to do. They want to argue the theology. But when we look at the Quran itself, demonstrating, sitting there arguing about what's in the Quran is kind of silly. It's if you're arguing from a theological perspective, what is the value of this verse versus that verse? What does this verse teach versus that verse? My question is why are you even placing any value whatsoever on the Quran itself? The Quran itself if you worked in a bank, and this is, I think we talked about this last week. If you worked in a bank and you're handling money all day long, and you're counting out 20s all day long, looking at them, feeling them, smelling them, touching it, all this, not tasting them. I didn't say tasting. Keep your tongue off the 20s. But if you are doing that every single day, and somebody tries to pass you a counterfeit $20 bill, you're going to be able to pick up on it right away. Why? Because you know the difference between the real deal and something that is counterfeit. And the same thing is true with the Bible. If you read the Old Testament and the New Testament, and you read it and study it daily, you read it and study it for a lifetime, and then when you pick up the Quran and try to read and study the Quran, you can see it's a counterfeit. It doesn't sound like the Bible. The stories are not presented the same way that they are as the Bible. The theological tenets and precepts are not the same as the Bible. It's completely different. It's a counterfeit. But that's not what we're going to talk about today. Today, what we're going to talk about is how we know that the Quran is not from Allah. It's not from God. There's no way it can be. Why? Because we know it was plagiarized. We know that much of it was plagiarized. And I'm going to show you and prove to you that it was plagiarized today. So today's topic deals with the Quran being plagiarized. Now, if I didn't have, if you don't have evidence for the Quran being plagiarized, of course, I'm not going to talk big smack about it. Of course, we're going to have people that are going to call or, chime in a chat or whatever and complain that, or comment on the video. And that's fine. If you want to comment, I don't delete comments that appear on the channel. And I'd like to see some counter arguments for some of these things that I'm going to be bringing up today. So today's topic is, of course, the plagiarized Quran. And if we got some time, we'll get into some news that matters. Now, I kind of did a parody on plagiarized, 1000% true type deal, because we know what 1000% true means, don't we, Mr. Rad? Mr. Rad. Mr. Rad. He's not even there. He's probably out on his bike again. He didn't take his own advice to stay off his bike. He's out there riding around. He got an email from a certain imam out of Houston when he was accused of being a pedophile I can't remember, it was last spring. Was it last spring? Not too long ago. And they said that they know 1000% that the person that they were identifying as being Rad was Rad. They knew 1000%. Well, the fact is that the guy that they were pointing out that was a pedophile that was in prison in Wisconsin was not Rad, because if he'd been in Wisconsin, Rad would not be riding around the streets of Chicago with his kafir during the Queen's Marathon last year. But anyway, 1000%. So when we go to 1000%, we say 1000%. We're just saying we know it's plagiarized. I don't know if it's 1000%, but it's at least triple digits. How's that?
And we do have a mugshot of that imam, don't we?
We also have him drinking Corona beer.
Yeah. I got an email.
Wait, hold on. You didn't explain the whole story right. Not only were they 1000% sure, they had link after link told the whole story. Not only that, but my mother actually contacted them and told them how disgusted she was. Literally, my mom, who cannot operate a cell phone, a computer, or anything, actually contacted Marshall and Kenny to tell them to. That's how they found out who I was. She ratted me out, my own mom.
Your mom
and everyone in the Crescent also did the same thing. I guess you, Eric, told them that really I was practicing in the Sunnah of Muhammad. Yeah.
If you give me enough money, I'll do anything.
Yeah. And the dude was in jail until May of this year. I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
That's the depth of intelligence that you're dealing with there when they make. They just, I don't know. It's just kind of. Let's see. Here's cross-examining scripts. This is a good. Yeah. Here we go. Yeah, they use Muslim logic to prove Red guilty. Yeah.
Wait a minute. You used the word intelligence there.
And Kenny actually said,
Hold on, Ed, finish what you saying. I didn't understand what you said.
Sorry.
I just said you used the word intelligence there, and I think you're giving too much credit.
Okay, yeah. Okay,
the mom. We have an email from the mom saying, if I'm wrong, I will go on your show and publicly apologize. Well, of course, he was proven wrong, and guess what? He's like, I have nothing to apologize for. And I'm still not sure it's not you. Whatever. I mean.
Well, I mean, that's. He sends me an email this week. I don't even know what the heck he's talking about. It says you reap what you sow.
No, it's sue. S-E-W. You reap what you sow. Not so.
What am I sowing?
Read the title. Read the subject.
I'm not.
I don't know. S-E-W.
Wait a minute. Isn't this the religion of peace?
It's supposed to be.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh yeah, he's always threatening to beat me up, and you better hope I never meet you. And
I thought that was.
They always.
I thought that was a disgraced police officer that threatened to do that.
Oh, that's all of them. It's all. But
okay, let's just. All right, it's boring already. Okay, let's see here. Plagiarize 100%. No, 1,000%. The Quran has been plagiarized. So let's take a look at this in what the Quran is to Muslims. They believe that the Quran is its origins are divine itself. They believe that Allah, for eternity past, has preserved His word on tablets in heaven, and then finally has revealed what was on those tablets to the angel Gabriel. And then Gabriel took that information and he gave it to Muhammad in Revelation over a 22-year period, 610 to 632, I think is when he supposedly received these revelations. And the origins of these revelations are supposed to be divine in their nature. It is supposed to be inerrant, without errors. And we can, do an entire show pointing out all the historical, all the scientific, all the geographical, all kinds of errors in it. But that gets boring. It's supposed to be a guidance for mankind for all time. So if you are to go to, let's say, I don't know, let's pick a verse. Let's pick up 65:4. 65:4 talks about chapter 65 deals with the divorcing of women, how men are supposed to divorce women. And in chapter 65, verse 4, it talks about how men are supposed to wait if they're going to divorce a girl or a wife. Let me make sure we understand the verbiage here, or the way we describe this correctly here. If you were going to describe a wife, if you're going to divorce a wife, you have to wait 3 months before you turn her out. Is it 3 months? Is it three? It is 3 menstrual cycles. Doesn't matter. You have to wait for 3 of them. Okay. And that's if you've had intercourse with them, if you've consummated the marriage. Okay. And then some people don't understand what consummate means when it comes to marriage, but that's neither here nor there. And it talks about wives who have not yet had their courses, who have not yet had menstruations. So what does that mean? What's the impact of that? Well, that means that you can marry, you can consummate a marriage, and you can divorce a prepubescent girl in Islam. That's what that means. That's what the Allah, the God of the universe, has ordained as a guidance for mankind. So when you see people...
But Eric, you're missing a vital point here.
A valid point?
Why do you have to wait? Well, no, you're missing a point. Why do you have to wait 3 months to divorce the prepubescent girl? The same as one who menstruates. Why 3 months? Why do you have to wait?
I don't know. Why do you have to
wait? Because you have to make sure she's not pregnant. Now, either Islam believes in immaculate conception of all prepubescent Muslim women, or there is sexual intercourse happening. So therefore,
no. Stop. I never even really considered that, but that's kind of stupid. But I mean, so you can divorce, or the purpose behind it. Of course, okay, I guess I have considered it, but I don't never really thought about it that deeply. So what you're saying is that you have to wait 3 months to ensure somebody that can't get pregnant in the first place doesn't get pregnant.
The purpose of the iddah before divorce is to make sure that the woman you are going to divorce is not pregnant, because it says that after she lays down her burdens, the pregnant woman, then you can divorce her. Okay? For some reason. So you don't want to send a pregnant woman out in the middle of the desert all alone, divorced, okay? And then have someone else be having sex with your pregnant ex-wife while you know what I mean? Okay?
Yeah, see, this is the thing. You got when you start talking about a guidance for mankind, I think you need to take a bath after you get done talking.
Oh yeah, this is like a swinger's guide to religion here. But no, seriously, no. The whole purpose of the iddah, because Islam is merciful. Because you can't divorce your wife if she's pregnant. That would just be cruel. You can only divorce her after she's had the child. I don't know. We'd have to ask others, but I don't know if they can divorce her right after she gives birth to your child, or you have to wait extra time. But either way, you cannot divorce a woman when she's pregnant, even if she's prepubescent, because Islam is merciful. You see. So this is ingrained. Child marriage and having sex with prepubescent girls is ingrained in Islam. It's in
I was just yeah, and I really didn't want to get into depth on that, but and I appreciate the commentary on it, and it's true that is true. I was just trying to point out that when you look at what the Quran means to Muslims, it's supposed to be a guidance for mankind. And then when you say, you start pointing out things like this, that, you can do this to prepubescent girls, or it tells you that you can strike your, where did Paul go?
I think he's having computer issues.
You can strike your wife, or it calls the, non-Christians and Jews the worst of creatures, or it talks about, prescribes crucifixion for all these things. I don't think that's a very good guidance for mankind, to be honest.
Well, it's a guidance.
When we start talking about the difference between being descriptive, like we find in the Bible, and prescriptive, as you find in these verses in the Quran, it's completely different things. Because I know people are going to say, "Oh, well, wait a second, the Bible talks about that." That's descriptive of what happened in the past. It's not prescriptive. You don't see Christians going out talking about being commanded by God to go out and kill a bunch of Hittites anymore, or Amorites, or Jebusites, or anything like that. Okay, so it's descriptive. Big difference between the two. Okay, so what else is the Quran? The Quran is, to Muslims, it's a linguistic miracle, and it's a linguistic miracle because you have. I know. Come on now, it's okay. It's all right. Stop. It is a linguistic miracle, even though it contains, I don't know, dozens, if I'm not mistaken, words that aren't even Arabic. But it is supposed to be a linguistic miracle. Poetry, don't you know? There was a clip that we played of that guy out of England, Hamza Mayet, where he was talking about how the people in Mecca could not believe how great the poetry, even the poets in Mecca could not believe how great the poetry and how poetic this was that they were getting in the Quran from Muhammad, and they were commenting on that. And the question is that where did you hear this from? And of course, you hear this from the Islamic literature. You don't have any sources out there that are dated prior to the 9th century that provide you any information about Mecca or Muhammad or the goings on. And so to make statements like that is just absolute lunacy when people do that. Okay, so it's a linguistic miracle. What else is it? It is perfectly preserved. And we know how that one worked out here recently with Muhammad Hijab and his famous conversation with Yasser Qadi, and how there's holes in the narrative, and how Yasser Qadi he's just backtracking. He looks like he's making it look like he's in the Olympics trying to backstroke, trying to get away from those comments that he made with Muhammad Hijab. He goes, that's not what I meant. Yes, it is. It's exactly what you meant. Own up to your words.
I think he won the race, if you ask me.
He set a world record is what he did. I mean, he's going in the book of records is what he's doing.
I love how God just takes guys like that and just lets them go full bore. He's like, oh, wait a minute. Open up the door. Here you go. Here's the floodgates. Now go. And they go, buddy.
Yeah, it's amazing how that how people and then they took the video down. I don't know how long it took them to take the video down.
I downloaded it so they couldn't take it.
Well,
I got it all.
I think it was Jai is the one that downloaded and realized exactly, because he, what's the difference between the kirats and the 7 different readings and things of that. I didn't understand that stuff until they started talking about it. But Jai, I mean, he was boom, 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 boom. He was all over it.
Yeah, I was too.
Yeah, so it's anyway. So it has not been perfectly preserved, but this is what they believe. And if they want to believe it, that's fine. If you want to, if you have blind faith and you want to, exercise that blind faith, that's fine. You go ahead. Nobody's going to stop you from doing it. But don't try to tell people that know better that is perfectly preserved, because it's not. Hatun Tash is not the lid completely off of that. With I think they have 36 different Qurans that they have in their possessions now, and they don't match up. And that's going to be one of the things we're going to talk about here. Is it 37? Okay, well, that's one of the things that we're going to be talking about here most directly. Okay, so in the Quran, it even says about these stories and its sources. It says in 4 different places. It talks about the tales of ancients. So if you go to Quran chapter 6, verse 25, and it talks about what they're hearing here. And then it says, this is not else than fables of the men of old. Then if you go to Quran chapter 8, verse 31, lo, this is not but fables of the men of old. That's twice. It's that where Muhammad is accused of telling stories and getting his own spin on these things, Quranic spin on these things. And people are saying, look, you don't even, and this is what I find just absolutely amazing, is that this stuff's still in the Quran. If I'm an editor, I kind of that doesn't even look good.
Fairy tales.
That's exactly what Osama described. I loved watching you guys at that conference this week. That was something else. I tell you, if I could have, I would have gone. If I could have gone, and I wish I should have gone, but some of us have
kids
jobs.
Are more important. Yeah.
No, well, my students, I guess. Who's this? We have somebody backstage here. I don't know if this is a troll. Yoji Boji? Let's bring him up and see what he has to say. You guys know this guy? Okay. Hello there. How are you?
Hello, guys.
Where are you from, Yoji?
I'm actually from the Caribbean, but I'm in Florida right now.
Are you bragging about that? Oh, I'm in wonderful weather with all you guys. I grew up in wonderful weather. We're around, and now I'm in Florida.
No,
I love where I am right now.
I have a question.
Okay.
Why does Allah have an arm, a shin, and a breast? Why does he have a breast?
Don't forget he has a nose to smell farts.
These are questions that you should ask Muslims. When they start asking, and you're absolutely right. Because if you go through the Hadith literature, it says all these things that Muhammad has. Was it 2 right shins? He's got a hand.
2 left arms, no right arm. Is that what it is?
Well, how does that work out? And they had, okay, so it doesn't make sense. But what inevitably happens with a question like that is that the responses of those are weak Hadith.
Yes,
confusing Hadith. We can't trust the Hadith literature. I mean, this is in the day and age. This is actually the day and age where it is almost fashionable to throw the most trusted Hadith literature under the bus and drive over it backwards 5 or 6 times. And the reason
don't forget we're talking about so many words that the man by the name of Muhammad, the man with the title Muhammad, there's no way he could have said this many words. There's just no way.
I don't. Yeah, and you're right. I don't see. I just don't.
Okay. Would you follow a person as a guru of God to like this guru like he dates 6-year-olds? Would you follow a guy like that?
No way.
You'd be surprised how many people do. Yeah. Well, the claim right now, I want to say is 1.8 billion, but I don't believe that. I think they exaggerate their numbers exponentially because they go by the populations of these countries and they try to claim that they're all Muslim, and they are not by a long shot. And then you have Sunnis and Shia, and they're both saying, no, you're not real Muslims. You're not real Muslims. So we take Shia out of the picture, that brings it down to about 800 million, right?
800 million.
Yeah.
I thought there's supposed to be 1.8 billion.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. I'll give it 1 billion.
The number is going to be inflated, of course. The number is going to be inflated because they count it just like you said. If you're in that country,
but Larry's family. Sorry, but Rad is so right, because they will turn around and say, well, the Shiite aren't, and they are willing to kill off their own first to prove the point. So they're still doing it today. And the Shiite, or if whoever asked the question, we have to guess the amount of their little sect.
Yeah, I think, is this Larry here? Is this
probably about 15.
Larry and I met 15%. At that conference.
Yeah, you should have been there.
So Larry was there.
Yeah, are you rubbing it in? Yeah. I wish I could have been there. That's the thing.
Yeah, I hate you all. I should have been there, but Mike actually just got fixed when it was happening, and I didn't want to risk it. So, next year if you guys do it again.
Yeah, try to schedule it in July or June.
Hey, I just got invited. I was the assistant.
That's when I can.
We'll see next time if I get lucky and present. We'll see.
Okay, so let's go back to.
So everyone have a good day. I just came on here to ask those 2 questions.
Okay, well, we appreciate you coming up. If you want to hang out, that's fine. If not, you drop back down in the chat. It's good to be here.
Those are good questions. Those are good questions.
I'll be back one day. Yeah.
All right, brother. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, so let's go back to, we got 2 different Quran verses that say that this is Tales of Ancients. How about 3? Yes, Quran 68:15. It says mere fables of the men of old. So you got 3 different times where Muhammad's being accused of plagiarizing. And then, here's 4. You got 83:13. It says the fables of old men. So you have you have a pattern of people accusing Muhammad according to and this is what this is the tablets, the eternal speech of Allah preserved on tablets in heaven of men accusing Muhammad of plagiarizing stories of old.
And that's only one part of the story. Plagiarism.
Okay, but if this is the speech of Allah, how can that be? That's one. I just don't. I don't know. I don't get there. Okay, so.
Well, remember. Keep in mind how Muhammad died. You can relate that directly to what you're saying. It is the words of Muhammad himself that said, "If I'm a false prophet, Allah will rip out my aorta." What did he accused Allah. Basically, he said he was a false prophet at the end. It feels like Allah's ripping up my aorta.
From the poison that he had eaten.
So Allah's revealing that Muhammad was a false prophet in these passages.
Yeah. You think I'm a false prophet? Well, then I'll feel like my aorta, or he's going to cut my aorta. And so when he's dying, he's like, "Oh, my aorta! I feel like it's being kicked." Yeah.
You silly kafir! You silly kafir!
It gets worse from there, though, guys. It gets worse from there, though, guys, because it says that if anybody is has their aorta cut, they'll be walking around in hell with their or no, if they drink poison and die from it, they'll be wandering around in hell drinking the poison for eternity. Yeah, that's what it is.
Okay. Gomo. That's all I can say.
Is that in the Hadith, or where do we find that?
Yeah, that's Hadith. Let me find it real quick.
Oh my gosh.
But is it an Iraqi Hadith? Because we can't trust those Iraqi.
Oh, it's Sahih.
But even if it's Sahih, we can't. If it's written in Iraq, because we can't trust the Iraqis clearly, because for some reason, don't know why. But you silly kafirs, don't you know? Muhammad didn't say his aorta was cut. Muhammad said that it felt like it was being cut.
Right, yeah.
So yeah. Here's another interesting thing. It's Quran or well, it's one of them is Quran, the other is Hadith, but I get them confused. So I think it's the Quran that says that Satan is closer to you. No, Satan is in your blood, and Allah is closer to you than your jugular vein. Think about this.
Oh, I think that is Quran. Hold on, let me double check that.
Yeah, so Satan's in the blood. That's in your being. And what do we know from the Bible? Life is given to you in the blood. He gives it to you for the atonement of sin. So here you have the corruption of that life. It is in your blood. And Allah can only be as close to you as your jugular vein to slit your jugular vein so that you will shed that sinful, wicked blood.
I have a question.
I mean,
do
sure.
you think that that's the same thing like with the Jehovah's Witness where they say they won't get a blood transfusion because of that verse? Do you think that's the explanatory reasoning? Is that because there's that like lifeblood that you can't
that's actually the reason they give. That's actually the reason they give.
Cool. That's what I thought.
Oh.
Yeah, here it is.
And they're also anti-vaxxers, and they're totally anti-science, clearly. I'm joking about that.
Here. There you go. Yeah, whoever drinks, it's Sahih Bukhari, book 76, Hadith 90. I just put it in the private chat.
Whoever drinks poison and kills himself with it, he will be carrying his poison in his hand and drinking it in the hellfire, wherein he will abide eternally forever. Sahih Bukhari, book 76, Hadith 90.
So the reference that was just given by Rad, it's Sahih Bukhari 2035. Yeah.
Can you read that real quick, Paul?
It says Satan reaches everywhere in the human body as blood reaches in it. I was afraid lest Satan might insert an evil thought in your minds. Wait a minute. If Satan's already in your human body. Yeah.
Okay. Let's just go on. All right. So we can sit here and read these things and drive ourselves crazy forever. All right. Okay. So in four different parts of the Quran, it says that Muhammad was being accused of plagiarizing these stories because they were stories that had been told before by the ancients, by men of old, is what it says here. Two of them say ancients, two of them say men of old. Okay. So let's look at direct plagiarism. Well, first off, let's start with the Sanaa manuscript. The Sanaa manuscript is the oldest Quran, known Quran in existence. It was discovered, of course, in Sanaa, Yemen in 1972 in a mosque. It's kind of like where they found the Sinaiticus in an old monastery in the Sinai. Here they found an old Quran in Sanaa, Yemen. It is a palimpsest, and what a palimpsest is where you have a skin, an animal skin, and people write on it, and then when they write on it, because it's very valuable material, and they want to put something new on it, they'll wash the old writing off and then write over what was under it. Well, the thing with the Sanaa manuscript is that we can tell what was underneath it because it leaves scratch marks of the original writings. And these scratch marks on the Sanaa manuscripts do not match what is written on the overscript, written over or on the manuscript itself. So in other words, it has
corrections.
It has corrections and rewriting and erasures all over this whole thing. And this is the oldest Quran manuscript in existence.
Well,
So
what makes it worse is that they have discovered that is actually Syriac writing on that because there were no dottings. There were no dottings at all.
There's no diacritical marks. Is that
right? Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, and here's another thing. I want you to think about this. When you look at the dating of the earliest Quran, they call it the Uthmanic recension. That they date that to as early as 650 and as late as 656. So let me make sure we emphasize this before we go to this next part of the slide. The Quran, the oldest Quran, is supposedly dated to 650 AD. 650 by Uthman. All of the previous writings that because Uthman he didn't write it. He was just the editor. He just put it together. He had all of these different, they talk about it's coming in on bones and on leaves and the memories of men and rocks.
Compiler.
And stones. What?
Compiler.
He was a compiler. Yeah. Editor, compiler. Yeah. Whatever you would call it. And then what did he do with the source material? Well, he took it to London, England, and put it in the British Museum of No, not what he did. He took it and burned it. He burned all of the old material. All of the old material he burned. Now, watch this. The oldest manuscript, the oldest Quranic manuscript, when we look at it, here's the writing that Ed was talking about. There's no diacritical marks involved in it. None. But here's what I like is that it was dated, and these pictures, folks, let me make sure you understand this. These pictures are not from a right-wing conspiratorial website, some Christian crusader website, anti-Islamic. These pictures that I'm going to show you here are from Islamic Awareness, because what they did is they made the big mistake of doing actual science with the Quran, with this Quran. And in doing actual science, they let the cat out of the bag, per se. They carbon-14 dated the manuscript. Now, I get it. Carbon-14 dating is not all that accurate. This is true. I get that. But it does provide for a range of dates. Now, if you don't know how carbon-14 works, is carbon-14 is developed in the upper atmosphere, and as it comes to Earth, it is absorbed by plants during photosynthesis. Animals therefore eat the plants, and then that carbon-14 atom, it's an unstable isotope, and it flips back to being a carbon-12 atom. And if there's a time period in which half of them will denigrate back into C12. So it goes from C14 to C12, and then you have a ratio there that will tell you what the half-life of that is. And half-life of a carbon atom, I think, is a C14 atom is 5,730 years, something like that. And if I'm right, pure genius. But I don't think I'm right. Somebody fact check me on that. 5,730 years. But anyway, you can get it pretty close for something that's more recent. When you start talking, getting back into like 15, 20, 30,000 years, then it starts, your half-life and then a half-life and then a half-life. It doesn't work out. But here you can get a good ratio. So what they've done is they've C14. Now watch this. They've C14 dated a Quran that is supposed to have originated around 650. somewhere around there. Look at the dates. Here we go. Here are the dates. Here are the dates. Here are the dates. Okay. Codex Sanaa, the Sanaa manuscript. You have 578 to 699. That is the best date that they have. Now, when is the Quran supposed to have been published by Uthman? 650. So you're talking about the uppermost part of that, dating. But then it gets to 657. Then the outer, this is the outer, the upper, this is the oldest that it could be.
But wait a minute. You've got the earliest.
The earliest it could be. I'm sorry, the earliest that it could be.
Yeah, 578.
And when you go to, normally what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to take the mean. And all of these dates predate the Quran, folks. All of them do, if you take the mean date. But it even gets worse. Down here, you have dates that predate the Quran by centuries. Centuries, folks. And these they were sent out to different labs. Okay, here are the labs that it was sent out to. The only one that gave it anything that was even close was the one in Arizona, but the one in Switzerland, the one in the UK, the one in Germany, and the ones in France. The ones in France completely destroyed it. I mean, when you look down here, you have over a century before Muhammad, well, it was 570 he was born, 632 he dies. So this is a century before the Quran was supposedly even written. This is what is this? This would be 50 years. Then that's the uppermost date. This and even the uppermost dates don't even coincide with what Uthman was supposed to have put the Quran together. So in other words, we have a Quran. The Sanaa manuscript is the Quran before the Quran. Think about that. You have a Quran that predates the Quran by centuries, and you're wanting to say that what Muhammad got from hard dates 570 or 610, however game you want to play it, 610 to 632 is supposed to be the revelation given by Yahweh? No.
But it gets worse.
How much worse? Tell me it.
It gets a whole lot worse because when they sent the actual the Syriac script to the German professors to be looked at, they found out that they were Christian hymns.
Yes, that's I'm reaching for it right here, folks. I got it right here. That's this book I read here. Am I correct on this?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
They find it. They're old Syriac hymns. So if you translate it back into Aramaic, how does that work? If you transfer it back, I can't remember how the guy does it.
It's Syriac. It's well, the other book is the Quran by Gabriel Sama. The Quran misinterpreted, mistranslated, and misread.
This one.
That's the one that really is the blue book.
Right here. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one. That's it. That's the one that really blows the lid off.
I've had these things for 6 months and I haven't read both of them or either of them yet. And I just got off a summer break. What a bum. You think I would have devoted myself to reading that, loser. Sorry.
No, you got to take a break, man. I get it.
I tell you what I need to, never mind. Okay. So the bottom line is that when we look at having a Quran that predates the Quran, we know for a fact it was plagiarized 1,000%. So whatever they're selling us on in 650, as far as, saying, if you want to follow the standard narrative and say that it was Uthman compiled, edited the known texts or the available texts that were available to him at that time and then burned them all. If you want to follow that narrative, go right on ahead.
It kind of burns your forest down because you don't have those manuscripts to go by.
No, they're not a bit right. They're those ones that Uthman supposedly put together. I think there's like 7 of them. How many were there?
Argument. 7, 9? Yeah. It was the 7 Kirat. But that's arguments from silence.
Yeah, they don't exist. But anyway, but what we do have predates Muhammad, predates the Quran that we have that is supposedly in circulation today. And that's a problem. That is a big problem. But just like everything else, you go from city bad to town worse with everything Islam. And let me begin by going through a bunch of verses here. What is this? Darcy, what are we doing here? What do you got here? The house of Argyle and what are the collateral branches of the clan Campbell? That's your history, isn't it?
Yes, that's her history. She was saying her family is 200 years older than the existence of Muhammad.
That's pretty old. But you're not that. She's not that old. That was a joke. That's a bad joke. Bad joke. Sorry, no. Sorry, Darcy. That was a bad joke. You know, you're not that old. Okay, so let's go to my favorite verse in the Quran. The one verse that clearly demonstrates that the Quran is what Paul was talking about in the first chapter of Galatians. And how Muhammad is that individual that we find in the first chapter of Galatians. Here it is right here. Chapter 4, verse 157. And for their saying, indeed, we have killed the Messiah. It's Jesus. And there is the Jews. We have killed the Messiah, the son of Mary, the messenger of Allah. And they did not kill him, nor did they crucify him, but another was made to resemble him. Okay, so a couple things that you notice here. The Jews, not the Romans, killed or did not kill. Number one, the Jews are calling Jesus the Messiah. Indeed, they're saying, the Jews, who's saying this? The Jews. The Jews are saying we killed the Messiah. Yeah, Jesus, you do not, Jews do not think that Jesus.
You don't kill your Messiah.
Right.
You don't kill your Messiah.
This is a major error, major blunder, telling us that this is not from Allah, Gabriel, or anybody associated with God himself. But the thing is that they did not kill him. They did not kill Jesus. This is saying Jesus was not killed. He was not crucified. Okay, so when we look at history and we use the historical methodologies that determine historical facts, you go back as far as you possibly can to primary source documents or people who allude to events that happen. And if you just get an ancient writing that talks about the occurrence of an event, that event you can put in a history book, and that's just one ancient writing. So if we were to discover something from, let's say, the Middle East, talking about Mecca, and this document predates the 7th century, then this Kafir's argument about the existence of Mecca prior to the 7th century not existing is blown completely out of water, because you can legitimately establish a fact by just having one document mentioning an event. If you have two separate documents mentioning the same event, it's impeachable. The event is impeachable. You can't say that the event never happened. If you have three, then you're what are you going to do? You have three separate documents saying that an event occurred. We have, according to Bart Ehrman, may Allah be pleased with him, Bart Ehrman says that there are 15 separate references to the death or to the crucifixion of Christ. 15. That includes biblical references, mind you.
They come from hostile witnesses.
Right. People that you would consider hostile witness. The Jewish Talmud, Flavius Josephus, a Roman or Jewish historian, Tacitus, a Roman historian, Marbon Serpian, who was a Greek. I mean, you have all kinds of people, Pliny the Younger, all these people who have nothing to do with Christianity. As a matter of fact, some of them hate Christianity. Jewish Talmud, case in point, all saying that Christ died on a cross. So when the Quran says that Christ did not die on a cross, we know for a fact that it is wrong, if you are indeed using the historical method. But it goes on to say, let me see here. It goes on to say, and indeed, those who differ are in doubt about it. They have no knowledge of it except the following assumption, and they did not kill him for certain. Okay, so anybody that would doubt this, they have nothing but conjecture, and nobody knows this for certain. Now, this is from a guy that is writing in supposedly. Let me make sure I put supposedly on put quotation mark. This is a guy that is saying this in the 7th century. Did people say this before? Was this said before the 7th century? Could their story have been circulating prior to the 7th century? And the quick answer is
yes.
The Gnostic sources.
Yes, right here.
The great treatise of Seth. Yep.
Right. And this was discovered in the Nag Hammadi library. I misspelled Hammadi. I apologize for this. About 200 AD. And it basically says, it's a narration of how it says, I did not die in reality, but in appearance. What happened is that they made an error in blindness. They're deaf and blind. It was another Simon who bore the cross of the shoulder. Simon the Cyrene is who the Nag Hammadi library, this great treatise says. It was Simon the Cyrene, the man who carried the cross for Christ to Golgotha, is the one that his image was put on, and it was made to appear that it was him. It was made to appear that it was Jesus, but it was actually Simon the Cyrene. This is a big problem. I mean, this is a huge problem. Why? Because you have a story that very closely resembles what no Gnostic, somebody said it before, no Gnostic apocryphal writings had said it before. But it isn't just this one, though. If we go to, hold on, let me make sure I got this right. If we go to Irenaeus, where are you? Irenaeus in his book Against Heresies, it's the same thing. He's arguing against this heresies. It says, but Simon, a certain man of Cyrene, being compelled to bore the cross of his head, being transfigured by him, whoops, I'm on the wrong screen here, but being transfigured by him that he may be thought to be Jesus, was crucified. So Irenaeus. Now think about when Irenaeus lived. Irenaeus, if anybody doesn't know, Irenaeus is middle of the 2nd century. Irenaeus was the student of, was it Ignatius or Polycarp? I think it was Ignatius. He was a student of Ignatius.
Ignatius.
Right. Okay. So Ignatius, now follow this, was the student of John, the Apostle John. John was an apostle of Jesus Christ. John would have direct firsthand eyewitness knowledge. His gospel puts him at the foot of the cross during the crucifixion. He would know that Jesus Christ was crucified. John would know this. So you have John, Ignatius, and now you have Irenaeus. Irenaeus writing what he learned from Ignatius, who learned it from John, who was there. But yet you want to say that, oh, well, they didn't, nobody knew for sure. And we even had that imam on the show one day talking about, well, you look on, hold on, let me grab a Bible here. You look in the book of, what was it, Corinthians, 1 Corinthians 15. You go to 1 Corinthians 15. It says it right here. Right here. 1 Corinthians 15. And then you drop down, let's see, verses. Now, if Christ be preached that he rose from the dead, how say some of you that there is no resurrection of the dead? But if there's no resurrection of the dead, then Christ not be risen. There's no preaching. Yea, we found false witnesses of God, because he's trying to say that this is people here in 1 Corinthians 15, verses 10 through 15 or so, said that, let's see, for if the dead not be raised, okay, if Christ be not raised, then they also which are fallen asleep and are perished. And this, okay, he's trying to say that this people doubted the crucifixion of Jesus, but that's not what it's talking about. I mean, this is how bad they lie. When you deal with people like this, they lie about what the Bible says. They try to get you, to get it to say something that it doesn't. They're talking about people do not believe that Jesus was resurrected. Nobody was doubting the fact that he had been crucified on a cross and died. It was the resurrection that they were doubting. So anyway, so here Irenaeus is in a position to know whether or not Jesus Christ was, in fact, if this was indeed a historical fact established, well established by the 2nd century. And then this seeps into the Nag Hammadi library, and he may have been this document. He very well may have been arguing against maybe the source for which this document was written, this heresy, this known heresy. Notice how, in order to demonstrate the veracity of Islam or the truthfulness of the Quran, they have to go to known heretical documents to do it. Has anybody ever noticed that besides me?
Yeah.
What about the Gospel of Peter? Come on, what's the other one? Gospel of Barnabas. What about the Gospel of Barnabas? Which tells us perfectly clear right there that
Gospel of Barnabas is a 14th century forgery, man.
It is, but they still use it in their arguments. They will still use it in their arguments, hoping that people are ignorant of that fact. And what they'll do is they will, what's the word where you, it's bait and switch when you obfuscate. They'll
obfuscate, yes.
Yeah, they'll use it interchangeably with the Epistle of Barnabas, which we know is a first century document. And then they'll trade, well, the Epistle of Barnabas, we know that's a first century document. Yes, we do. Well, there you go. You're conflating. You're saying that one, the Gospel of Barnabas and the Epistle of Barnabas are the same thing, and they're not. Anyway, so the writings of Irenaeus in his work Against Heresies discusses this known heresy that Jesus Christ was not crucified, that somebody else was crucified in his place. But we also, when we look, let's see here, when we look in the commentators, the great commentators on the Quran, let's go to Ibn Abbas, who was contemporaneous with Muhammad. Let's see what Abbas says. Now, notice how similar Abbas's writings are to the second great treatise of Seth. Let's see here. We slew Jesus the Messiah, son of Mary, Allah's messenger. Allah destroyed their man, Tatianos. Now, hold on a second. Let's stop. Who's Tatianos? Let me put it back up there. Allah destroyed their man, Tatianos. They slew him, not nor crucified, but it appeared unto them. Allah made Tatianos look like Jesus, and so they killed him instead of him. Now, this is Ibn Abbas. Who's
Ibn Abbas is engaging in Disney Islam.
Disney Islam.
He knows more details. Than Muhammad. So
Yeah,
Muhammad was clueless. So we have to create this new person. Yeah.
And Ibn Abbas was what, around the 780s?
No, Ibn Abbas was Muhammad's cousin. He lived at the same. He was alive when Muhammad was alive.
Okay.
I think he was. I'm willing to be wrong on that.
You're right. You're right.
Okay, so he was Muhammad. See, I'm always fact checking myself. I'm willing to be wrong, and if I'm wrong, I don't mind you guys telling me I'm wrong.
I can say that because I'm listening to Sama more. That's so I can say that.
Sama knows his stuff. This is for sure. Okay, so Ibn Abbas is even commenting on this, and he's sounding an awful lot like the second great treatise of Seth. Certainly, they did not kill us. They made Jesus look like Tatianos. Now, again, who is Tatianos? Does anybody know who
notice
Tatianos?
The name is? So we have another problem here. We have a Greek name.
Tatianos is the Greek name?
Yeah, just
For
like
who?
Paulos is Greek.
Okay, but who's Tatianos? Who is this guy? Tati, come on over here. We need you to carry this cross. Okay, well, and don't you think Tatianos, after they nailed this guy to the cross, he would have said something? Hey, yo, I ain't Jesus, but you look like Jesus. Oh, well, who did? He would have said something. This makes zero sense. This makes as much sense.
I mean, do you think his own mother wouldn't recognize who he was on the cross? Come
well,
on.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. So let's assume this is all true. What kind of a God is this? What kind of a God? Okay, and especially you read the great trustees of Seth. Okay, where this dude is in total shock and in horror. Okay. All of a sudden, he wakes up and he's nailed to a cross. He didn't do nothing wrong. He wasn't walking down the street preaching miracles, taking on the Sanhedrin, cursing and condemning them. overturning the temples. He had nothing to do with nothing. Kind of like, certain people work with that get their pictures posted on the internet. Again, do you see what I'm saying? Okay. All of a sudden, he wakes up in shock and horror. He is stripped naked, beaten, flogged, tortured to death, nailed to a cross, being spit on and mocked, covered in his own urine and filth. Okay, at this point in time, and he's like, "What the hell did I do?"
Well, this is something that you following the chronology on this. Now, the Tatianos. The point I'm trying to make is that he's not mentioned anywhere else in history. We don't know. Nobody knows who this guy is. They don't know the Greek name for this. So if you're going to say that this is Simon the Cyrene, then they got the name wrong. Abbas got the name wrong. Second thing is, if he was made to appear, like put the image of Jesus on him, and this is indeed Simon the Cyrene. Simon the Cyrene is carrying the cross for Christ after Christ has been flogged. So what you're doing is you're not only putting the image of Jesus on Simon the Cyrene, but you're also putting all of these wounds on him that Christ had received at his scourging when he was scourged.
So he didn't do nothing. He was just walking down the street.
So this is absolutely ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous for somebody to believe this.
And also, in the great Tresses said, here you have Jesus laughing. He's saying, "I mock you." Remember, if you read it, I'm mocking you at this time. I'm mocking you at this horrible man, at this horrible thing, at this man who's made to look like him, that is being tortured and crucified. And you know what I mean? And he's mocking this. What kind of God is this? What kind of Messiah is this?
What kind of Allah is this? To do that, to have that happen to somebody else that didn't deserve it at all, to have that happen.
Well, that's not even the worst part of it.
We got an answer to that in the Quran. He's the chief of deceivers, so he thinks if he can deceive us and think that and find out how stupid we are by telling us the story and see if we are dumb enough to believe it.
Okay, so and this is the one reason. If we're going to look for if I ever wanted to point to one reason why I would never convert to Islam, the one main reason why I'd never convert to Islam is because of this. If the Allah, the God of the Quran, is going to put somebody else up on the cross that is going to leave the impression that it is Jesus, knowing if you are indeed Allah, you are omnipotent, and you are to know the past, present, and the future, and you are knowing that this crucifixion, this death of this man, and his resurrection of somebody that is a fake, is going to result in the result of billions of people believing that he is the Son of God, that he did rise again from the dead, and that his death is a propitiation for our sins. And by believing said thing, it's shirk. You're committing shirk, and you're going to condemn yourself to hell. So what you have here is you have the God of Islam, the most malevolent personage that you can think of, is doing something that he knows is going to result in billions of people going to hell in the future. That is somebody you would never bow a knee to. That is absolutely sick behavior. If you do something and you know it's going to cause billions of people to go to hell in the future, you are a malevolent piece of garbage for doing that. And I don't mean to be so harsh on saying Allah's a piece of garbage, but if Allah did in fact do this, knowing that people would be committing shirk, the only unpardonable sin that results in them condemning their souls to hell, yes, that is a piece of garbage. Okay, I think we beat this horse to death. No, we haven't. Let's get the horse back up and let's go look at another commentator. My daughter just told in. I'm not sure what they have to do. Anyway, Ibn Kathir. What does Ibn Kathir say? Well, look at this. Friday in the evening, they surrounded Isa in the house, and they felt that they would do up to the house. He would sooner or later leave it, and said to his companions, "Who volunteers to be made to look like me?" Well, that sounds a lot like the great treaty of Seth. Uh-oh. And then it goes on to say, a young man volunteered, but he thought, Jesus thought he was too young. He asked the second question, and a third time, the man volunteering promised to say, well, then you will be that man. Allah made the young man look exactly like Isa, while a hole was opened in the roof of the house, and Isa was made to sleep and ascended to heaven while asleep. So here you have the greatest commentator on the Quran saying that somebody else took his place. Go ahead, Paul.
So you know what's going on here is this is where it gets funny. How much later is Ibn Kathir again?
Ibn Kathir, I think, is 1200 or so.
So we're hundreds of years later after Muhammad, and
you're gonna make me laugh.
It's funny how did Ibn Kathir know this information, all these details, when he didn't speak to Muhammad? No one else told him this information. How is it that this is where I like this statement? Disney, he calls Usama calls him basically he's the fairy tale man.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ibn Kathir died in 1373. I think I'm thinking of
But this is their best.
Okay.
He creates fairy tales.
No, Al-Jalayn's 1459. Ibn Kathir was 1370, so that's when he died. Jalalayn was after that. But again, here you have the greatest commentator, supposedly the greatest commentator on the Quran, regurgitating what Irenaeus is fighting against, in the 2nd century. He's regurgitating what was in this document in the Great Treatise of Seth, known heretical documents in a book. Irenaeus is against heresies, against heretics, and they're trying to use this to justify their religion. It also goes on. Let's see. Miriam sat under the corpse. Here it is. Miriam sat under the corpse of the crucified man and cried, and they said the dead man spoke to her. So you have all of these stories trying to say that Jesus never. Number one, it wasn't Jesus on the cross; it was somebody else. Or if you ascribe to the swoon theory, again, you have all of these theories, you have all of these tautologies that are known heresies as early as the 2nd century, and yet they're perpetuated all the way up into the 7th century at the time of Muhammad. And if you read, hold on, I'm going to read it. What did I do with where did it go? Right here. And you tell me what this sounds like. And you don't have to tell me right away, but it says right here. Let's see here. I marvel that you so soon removed from him that called you into the grace of Christ unto another gospel, which is not another, but there be some that trouble you and would pervert the gospel of Christ. But though we or an angel from heaven preach any other gospel unto you, that which we have preached unto you, let him be accursed. As we said before, so I say now again, if any man preach any other gospel unto you that ye have received, let him be accursed. What is a different gospel? Saying that Jesus Christ didn't die on the cross. So Paul, in the 1st chapter of Galatians, is saying, if somebody else comes along and preaches a different gospel, let them be accursed. This is why we do this show. This is why we equip Christians with the knowledge to understand when people that come up here or that try to pervert the gospel of Christ through this religion. This is why we do it. We protect the orthodoxy of our religion against the lies that these people tell. You're going to tell the lie that Jesus Christ never died on a cross, then you are, number one, historical, but number two, you're a demonstrable liar. That there's no getting around that. Okay. Again, thank you, everybody in the chat for coming. We're not done yet. I just want to make sure that if you have not yet subscribed, liked, rang the bell for notifications, and commented, please do that. If you have not done that yet, that goes to the, why do I keep forgetting this word? Algorithm. It goes to the algorithm. Yes, thank you. The algorithm. I don't know why I keep forgetting. I must be getting.
Yes. Please comment after the show. Just say hello, because it does help. No, seriously, it does. Just have a conversation.
You can't comment on the show. You can't comment during the show.
No, we got to talk about that. You have you don't. Yeah, we got to talk about that. But no, you can. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, comment, have a conversation, post Bible verses, whatever. But yeah, seriously, during the show, and thanks everybody. Especially, we had a few new visitors. Thank you. We had someone new join us. Please come back. We're trying to rebuild the show. Like I said, we were under attack. Seriously, doxing attack. We had the show removed. We had videos removed. I mean, it's been horrible the last 2 years, but we survived. We battled it out, and we're still here. So we're rebuilding, and we're going to make it greater, bigger, greater than ever. The only thing that's sad, and I find this sad, the Muslims don't come around no more. You know what I mean? And it's not just us, our show, it's other people's show as well. They don't, you know what I mean? There used to be interaction and engagement, and now it's, it's everybody's in a bubble. You got the Muslims in their bubble, we got us in our bubble, but they don't want to engage us. They absolutely refuse.
I think what it is, Rad, is that they are such fallacious reasoners. They can't handle the truth. They can't speak without lying. They can't think logically. They can't go A and B. Okay, that makes C. All right, they can't do that. So they get destroyed so easily. I think that's why they'll come here, they'll listen. That's what it is. They come and they listen. They're afraid to comment. We had a guy in here earlier. He was just insulting people, and I says, "Thank you for demonstrating your lack of knowledge of logic."
In here,
in the chat room. I thank him for demonstrating his lack of knowledge of logic. Who was that? I gave him a hard time. It's like,
I missed that one too.
But
Trinity Matrix.
When guys say that, they don't come back with a rebuttal. They just say stuff like that. Or, Trinity Matrix. Never mind.
Trinity Matrix came back, and he started to insult. I says, "Thank you again for demonstrating you don't understand logic."
Well, no, so no, you can expect that. But I'm sorry, Ed Van Halen knows what I'm talking about, and others probably in the chat. Back in the Pal Talk days, we went to each other's rooms and we had robust discussions. Don't get me wrong. People got out of line and got angry, got mad, and had to get banned from a room from time to time. But pretty much, we had good conversations for hours on end. I've just noticed that maybe it was COVID. I don't know, but no. I'll give an example. I was going through looking because we're going to do a highlight show of over the last 5 or 6 years, and I was going over the Imam's old videos, and there was a time, several videos, where Eric is even on Kenny's show. A couple videos, even myself. I forgot about this. I totally forgot about this. And
you and I were on Kenny's show one day. We took over the show.
Oh no, you remember that? Yeah.
Yeah.
That was funny. But this is going way back when. And I'm like, dude, what happened here? What happened was all of a sudden everybody got nasty. Everybody all of a sudden they started doxing and threatening and the whole cyber jihad thing. You know what I mean? And it just got really, really. Yeah.
That all started with the episode with what Ijaz Ahmad did to Ariel Gonzalez, and then it kind of rolled into Hatun getting slapped.
But But even before that, there was a cyber jihad thing going on. I mean,
there was. The Facebook channel kept getting attacked, and the mass reported, and that if that's the only thing that they can do, then they've lost. And
that's what I'm saying. Something happened on the Muslim side. All of a sudden, they freaked out. I don't know. Was it what's his name? You mentioned him, the sheikh who said that there were holes in the narrative. That's part of our cold close. By the way, if you only tune into the show, just only tune into the end to watch the cold close. I'm saying because
you have to watch the intro too.
Well, yes, the intro too.
Everything in between there, no big deal.
Forget about it. Yeah. But no, you know what I'm saying. So I mean, something changed, something happened. And then you got the one guy in California who's faking being stabbed. You know, I mean, it just got crazy.
Usman.
Yeah,
I don't care.
Ibn Fibn Uthman. Yes.
They haven't found.
I think Chris coined that term, Ibn Fibn. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. But yeah. Anyway, well, that's all. I'm just saying.
Okay.
Well,
we
got
to get rolling because I gotta roll out of here in just a couple minutes. Yeah, I thought we'd get through a lot more of this. It doesn't look okay.
It was good, Eric. It was
good. We got more to go. I got some more here. Okay, so when we look at what Kathir has to say about the crucifixion, the greatest commentator on the Quran, according to Islam, says that God did exactly what it says in the second great treatise of Seth, which Irenaeus is arguing against in the 2nd century. Now, Al-Jalalain, he does the same thing, and yet they did not slay him, nor did they crucify him. But the one slain and crucified, who was an associate of theirs, was given the resemblance of Jesus. God cast Jesus' likeness to him, and so they thought it was Jesus. And surely in doubt regarding the slaying him, some of them said, when they saw the slain man, the face is that of Jesus, but the body is not his, and so it is not he. And others said, no, it is he. They did not have any knowledge of the slaying, only the pursuit of conjecture. So here again, Al-Jalalain triples down with Ibn Abbas, Ibn Kathir, and now Al-Jalalain. They're all saying that somebody else's image was placed on, or Jesus's image was placed on somebody else, whether it was Simon the Cyrene, or if Simon Cyrene is this Tatianos, or whoever this Tatianos guy. He sounds like some type of Pirates of the Caribbean foil or something. Who that? Nobody knows who this guy is. But all of Islamic literature gravitates towards this known pre-Islamic heretical story that Jesus did not die, which absolutely contravenes the entire historical method and how historical facts are ascertained. The death of Jesus Christ is the most assured thing that we know about Jesus Christ. And that's according to, may Allah be blessed with him, and that is Bart Ehrman. Or no, may Allah be pleased with him. There we go. Allah be pleased with that.
It's not even Bart Ehrman, Sir William Ramsey and several others as well.
Well, Bart Ehrman's an atheist. And you have are these other guys? Are they atheists? Or are they?
Sir William Ramsey was a scholar. He's definitely a biblical scholar. But R.D. Wilson, all of these guys were professors in historical biblical in the historical biblical field, and they've gone through all of it, man. He's done the comparisons, archaeological, all that stuff.
Yeah, and it's sad that people will believe this type of garbage at the detriment of their soul. And this is what really kind of hurts me, is that people, you have 1.8 billion people out there created in the image of God that are going to reject Jesus Christ, what Jesus Christ did for them on that cross, because of the yammerings of this 7th century. I'm not going to say it, but the 7th century man. And in doing so, what they're basically doing is they're throwing out all the gifts that God has given mankind, the ability to use reason, logic, to ascertain facts, and they're doing it at the behest of somebody that is a demonstrable murderer, a demonstrable plagiarizer, as we've demonstrated, we're going to continue to demonstrate here, a demonstrable enslaver, and a demonstrable ethnic cleanser, rapist, all of these things, all of these vile things that we can think of that are ascribed to human beings today, the Islamic literature states that Muhammad did. All these things that we find reprehensible in human beings, to include slavery. And let's just understand this. All cultures, all societies have had slavery in them at some point, at one point or another. And, it was perfectly acceptable at that time to have slavery, and we have to, because.
Oh, Eric,
let me finish. Let me finish this thought, okay? Let me finish this thought. It was perfectly acceptable in all kinds of society throughout all of recorded human history that slavery was accepted. And that's okay. But today, everybody on the planet looks down upon slavery, or at least they should, and thinks it's a repugnant institution. The difference is, and this is the difference, and this is what we need to understand, this is sunnah. This is something, if Muhammad did it, it's perfectly permissible to do it in perpetuity, to do it today. If Muhammad enslaved people, if Muhammad had slaves, traded slaves, bought slaves, or enslaved people, it's perfectly permissible to do it today. Or malumated, freed slaves. If he did that, that's perfectly permissible too. But the fact is that you cannot say it's evil because Muhammad did it. We hear this all the time when we start talking about the age of Aisha. Well, what's a woman? How old is to you? Shut up. It's perverted to do that type of thing. Brad, what are you going to say?
Okay, Eric. First of all,
I got on a rant.
First of all, you just canceled the show because you haven't got your new DEI material, your diversity, equity, and inclusion material at the school. You clearly have not read that because don't you know only white people own slaves, and only white people can own slaves, and white people are racist and white supremacists in their nature, and everybody else who's not white, although they can't really define that, they haven't quite figured out the color of the Asians yet. No, seriously, because Asians are white, but then they're not white. No, seriously.
Practice slavery.
No, it doesn't matter.
Hey, Rad.
You don't. What?
Hey, Rad. We have to teach who the first slave was. That means the first slave owner was black
in America.
We do teach that.
That's a funny story because that's a white dude. There were two white. Anyway, that was owned by a black guy. But we will ignore that part. If you're talking about 16, Anyway, but that's beside the point. But anyway, I wanted to address the point. But yeah, thanks for getting us canceled after we started to get us back here. Thank you. But no, seriously, think about this for a second. You mentioned the freeing the slaves in the and Muslims will go to this. Well, Islam has for freeing the slaves. Why? How was this practice supposed to happen? If you commit a grave sin, you can free a slave. Well, think about this. It doesn't say you can't buy another slave. It just says you have to free a slave. So, okay, guess what? Every time I sin, I'll just free a slave and I'll buy 10 more because my sin happens to be making money on charging interest. So therefore, I'll just free a slave every year because I'm sitting on having a bank that's charging interest. Or my sin is, it doesn't matter. My point being is this: you have just done perpetual slavery. It's kind of the thing where, abolitionists, okay, they would buy slaves then to free them, and then they figured out, wait a second, we're just perpetuating the slave market because what we're actually doing is we're purchasing slaves and then just going out and getting more slaves. You know what I mean? So you're perpetuating the market. That's all Islam does. It does not abolish slavery. It just creates a market for slavery, and that is to free a slave because you've sinned. Do you see what I'm saying? And it doesn't even say that slave once freed cannot be re-enslaved. Actually, no, that's another thing. A slave once freed cannot be re-enslaved or can be re-enslaved. There was no prohibition against that as far as I know. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But as far as I know, if you free a slave, there's no prohibition against re-enslaving them. So they're free for a day because your sins are forgiven, and then either someone else enslaves them or you re-enslave them. Do you see what I'm saying? Oh, but anyway,
I don't
thanks
know.
for canceling, sir. Yeah.
There's little catches. There's little catches.
Yeah, I'll have to
there.
look.
Suppose
that'd be an interesting topic to look up. Sorry, go ahead.
We will be covering that eventually, and when we're doing that critical thinking versus Sharia. But there is little catches in there. Yes.
Just remember that the Quran has not gone through textual criticism whatsoever.
Well, that's what we're doing here, or we're supposed to be doing here, but I'm sidetracking everybody's conversation.
We have to let Eric finish up because he's got to run.
Yeah,
Cold close, which is why everybody tuned in was for cold close.
But I tell you what we'll do. We'll go ahead and we'll continue this conversation next week on plagiarisms. And instead of saying plagiarisms 1,000%, I'm going to put plagiarisms 2,000%.
Sounds good.
On the sign of that. Again, everybody that's in chat, I say it every week, but I mean it from the bottom of my heart that I appreciate you coming in and contributing to the show, opining there. There are all kinds of other things that you could be doing on your Sunday afternoon instead of hanging out with us. Panel members, you guys are always welcome. I love you guys, and I appreciate you coming in here and contributing every weekend. And that'll be it. You guys have a great day. And I'm just kidding, Rad. I'm going to go ahead and play cold close. Where are you at? Cold. Why do you call it cold close? Why can't you call it like show?
Because that's what the industry calls it, dude. I'm trying to be industrial.
I know.
That's what they call it.
I know.
Who calls it that?
The industry. When you end the show, it's a cold close. When you anyway. Yeah.
It's
There's no commentary.
You said the industry. Are we in the industry?
We're in the industry.
Advertising industry.
Oh, advertising. Okay, well, we don't have any advertisers. The advertisers that we have, well, they went out of business during COVID. All right, guys.
They're doing pretty good. They're pretty good, doing pretty good in Iran and Iraq.
Yeah. It's that camel urine company, man. That was a bust. All right. God bless you all. We will see you next Sunday on the Cross and the Crescent discussion group. We'll see you.
Advanced, student, and specialist. That the standard narrative has holes. That's what
that the Muslims were rioting against one another. And as much as we don't want to face the fact, the Muslims were lying sometimes. They were fabricating, they were embellishing, and that might be hard to accept, but that is a reality.
That's all, folks.